You're tuned in to Foolery.
What's up, fools? So, on episode of Foolery, we're going to go over some of the highlights this week in the news and give some feedback and some of my opinions. The main story, throughout the week was the story with Rasheda Tlaib and Ilhan Omar wanting to go to take a trip to Israel, and then Trump putting his foot in his mouth. And I see a lot of people kind of being a little hypocritical when it comes to who is on their side and who's not on their side, and the rhetoric they use towards each one of them. So we're going to go over some of that, but we'll start off with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar planning a trip to Israel. Rashida Tlaib's grandmother was dying, and she wants to go see her for the last time. And so she writes a letter to Israel, the government, just saying, hey, I want to be able to come see my grandma. My city is what she calls her, and she says, I'll be good. I promise. Now, the Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib are both very well known for giving Israel crap. Like, they don't like Israel. They don't like what they're doing with Palestine and the way that they're kind of moving in. They're not happy. They side with Palestine when it comes to the wars and everything. So they've been very hard on Israel, and there's a lot of debate as to whether or not what they're saying is anti-Semitic or whether or not they're just criticizing a government. I tend to lean mostly towards them just criticizing a government most of the time. I think they use some very edgy words when they do, and maybe should be a little bit more careful with what they say. But overall, I don't think what they're actually doing or saying is anti Semitic, but there's a little bit more that plays in there. So they ask Israel if they can go to see her city, and she says, look, I'll be good. I won't put out any propaganda. I won't speak against your government. I won't say anything bad. I promise. I just want to see my grandmother. And they said, okay, as long as you do all of that, then we're okay. Israel has a law against allowing people in who spread negative propaganda against their government, which most countries do. I mean, most countries do not allow people to come into the country who adamantly support the overthrow of their government. Like, I doubt that the United States is just allowing people from ISIS, who were putting out videos about chopping off the heads of the infidels. I doubt that they're letting those people into the United States, right? And I understand that what Rashida Tlaib says is not nearly that extreme, but it kind of is. So we'll get to that part. But anyways, I don't understand what why people kind of side with Palestine after the two wars, but after Israel said that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar could come over, they Trump immediately put out a tweet asking Israel to change their minds. He said it would show great weakness if Israel allowed Rep Omar and Rep Tlaib to visit. They hate Israel and all Jewish people, and there is nothing that can be said or done to change their minds. Minnesota and Michigan will have a hard time putting them back in office. They are a disgrace. So, pretty quickly after Trump tweets this out, Israel comes back and says, you know what, we changed our minds. we're not going to let you come. Uh, they gave a reason for it, and I don't think that reason is all that ridiculous. They said the reason that they're not letting them come in is because the itinerary, uh, the Rasheda Tlaib and Ilhan Omar gave the government their itinerary. They were letting them know their whereabouts and what they were going to be doing while they were there on their trip. And lots of government officials actually asked and said, "Hey, we'd like to meet with you. We'd like to have a meeting and do some photo shoots and pressers." And they turned all of those down. They did not want to meet with anybody in the Israeli government. And when they gave them their itinerary, it said that they were going to Jerusalem in Palestine. After the wars, Jerusalem is in Israel. And seems kind of disrespectful to then turn around and say it's actually a part of the country or territory that you defeated to get this land. We're still going to pretend it's part of their land. That seems a little disrespectful, but okay. And so Israel turns around and says, you know what, we changed our minds. If you're going to start off with propaganda in your itinerary, then we don't want to let you in. And Rasheda says, you know what, if you don't want to let me spread propaganda, then I don't want to come anyways. Israel said, you told us you weren't going to do this stuff. And if you keep that promise, then you can come. She put out a statement then on Twitter saying, I have decided not to travel to Palestine and Israel at this time. Visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions meant to humiliate me would break my grandmother's heart. Silencing me with treatment to make me feel less than is not what she wants for me. It would kill a piece of me that always stands up against racism and injustice. So she changed pretty quickly. I mean, they didn't call her and say, "Hey, will you please come to Israel? We would really like to have you." And she said, well, only if I can spew a bunch of hatred about you guys. And then they said no. Like, no, she said to them, hey, I would like to come to Israel. I promise I'll be good. I won't say anything against you. I won't spew hatred. I will be a perfect, congresswoman just coming to visit her grandmother. And then turned out that's not all it was. She was not willing to keep a lid on it for a little while. And I think it's kind of messed up a lot of the people on the right who are saying, oh, well, then obviously she doesn't love her grandmother. She likes propaganda more than she loves her grandmother. Like, that's messed up, okay? Like, obviously her grandmother and her, they feel strongly about this, and they had a discussion, I'm sure. And her grandmother decided together that it was more important for her to stand by her, her laurels than it was for her to go and see her. And you can admire that, but I disagree with the reasoning. The if Israel won that land in the wars, I mean, man, everywhere that's worth living, somebody won it in a war or defended it in a war and won it that way. I mean, the United States, we fought wars against the indigenous to take the land, and so is everywhere else where you have fertile soil and you have good riverways and good trading. It's not that ridiculous that Israel says, hey, look, we won this war, and now we're going to continue spreading our border farther and farther until you're willing to stop us. And the Palestinians' response has been terrorism. And so Israel turned around and said, okay, fine, then we will take you over. That is it. Like, we are taking over all of your stuff because you don't know how to act right. We're putting you in timeout. And they put them in this little section in the middle and said, you're not allowed to leave here. You're stuck here. You cannot immigrate into Israel or become an Israeli citizen. You are staying right there. And I believe it's in the Jordan area where Palestine is. But um, anyways, they're not letting them out, and it's messed up. But at the same time, so is terrorism. And the United States has been willing to go to extraordinary lengths to try to stop the terrorism from reaching their people. And you may disagree with some of it, but I see the Israeli government seeming to do the same exact thing. It's not as if the Palestinians are blameless in all this. Everybody chose sides. If you're on the right, you stuck with, uh, Israel. If you're on the left, you stuck with Rasheda, Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. And um, there were debates over whether or not they were correct, and we start getting back into, Israel versus Palestine and who's actually correct in that. And really, I mean, I think everybody knows, like, it's pretty obvious the United States has been very supportive of their allies in Israel, and it's not a good idea to continuously speak out against an ally. Now, it's not as if this is a strong ally that we need to come back us up. No, but there are larger implications that are there in why we support Israel. And so I just think it's smarter just to leave them alone. But they don't, and the left ends up looking dumb, and they can just be left alone looking dumb. The rest of the people on the right can just sit back and laugh and enjoy it when they run around looking crazy. But that's not Trump's style. The guy has to go and say something stupid and put his foot in his mouth.
Where has the Democratic Party gone? Where have they gone where they're defending these two people over the state of Israel? And I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
It's that last phrase. So you can say it shows a lack of knowledge all you want. There are demographics that politicians and parties in politics always wonder why they have an issue getting them to vote for them, right? Like, it's just, you just think, well, maybe they're just not smart enough to understand our party, or maybe they're not smart enough to understand my policies or my politics. That's common. It's said all the time. Not a big deal. Say all the Jewish people are dumb. They're known for being pretty smart. They're not going to take any offense to that. But the last phrase, what you say just after that, is where the issue comes in.
I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
Great disloyalty. Who are they disloyal to? And that's the question. Are they disloyal to the United States for voting for an American political party? No. He's saying they're disloyal to Israel, but they're not Israelis. Why would they be loyal to Israel? They don't have any sort of dual loyalty. And that's something that they take offense to, is if you say they have dual loyalty, that they're not loyal to the United States, or that they would take Israel over the United States. That's something that they take offense to, and that's where Trump runs into an issue. So the Democrats, liberal media, the progressives, the social justice warriors, they're all upset. Trump should not have said that, and now he's in trouble with all of them. If he had just stayed quiet or even just left that last part off, he would have been fine, man. Everybody still would have been talking about Rasheda Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. But he has to go and stick his foot in his mouth. And it's like he did before. You know, it was obvious Nancy Pelosi and AOC were getting into it pretty hardcore, very publicly, going back and forth. And Trump couldn't stay quiet. He couldn't just let them look like crazy people. He had to go and jump into it and say, ho, 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 you think you're crazy. I'm Trump. I'm even crazier than you. I'll show you who's crazy. It's a pain in the butt. I mean, when he's quiet, it's a lot easier for conservatives to attempt to have this guy's back. But I do not envy conservatives who support Trump, because that is a tough task indeed. But so is it to try to defend the squad. Real tough guys over there. You were worried about the squad now, but he could have just kept his mouth shut, and he didn't, and he got himself in trouble again with the Jewish stuff, and that's just what he does. That's who he is. So you got everybody from the left mad at him now. And if just the Jewish people were mad at him, then that would kind of make sense. But it's not just the Jewish people. It's everybody on the left saying that this is offensive, as if they're all Jewish. Or they're all offended for the Jewish people, which would kind of make a double standard, because there are lots of people on the left who say, hey, if you don't fight for gay marriage and you're gay, you're a traitor. Or if you're not marching with Black Lives Matter, then you're not black enough for me. If you're not kneeling during the national anthem, you're not a real black person. You're one of those fake black people. People on the left do this all the time. And for them to get upset with Trump for what he said means that they should be getting mad at all of these other people for what they say, right? This is Ayana Presley at Netroots pretty much saying the same thing.
You are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up. Because
that seems like the same thing, right? Like she's saying, if you don't think like me, then you're not one of me. You're not gay enough. You're not brown enough. You're not black enough. You're not queer enough. You're not whatever. If you don't follow my ideology, if you don't follow my politics, then you're a traitor. And you're not one of us. And Ayana Presley is black. I mean, she's one of the squad, one of those scary squad members. And she's sitting right next to Ilhan Omar and Rasheda Tlaib. They're all sitting there. And they're all smiling, and they're nodding, and they're clapping. None of them tap her on the shoulder and we're like, hold on, slow down. Do you realize what you're saying right now? No, they are perfectly okay with it, because it's okay when you're on the left. This sort of stuff is perfectly fine. But if you're Donald Trump, you can't brush your teeth in the morning. without getting in trouble. So there's a guy who runs a show. His name's Wayne Allen Root. He comes to Trump's defense and kind of says, look, Jewish people love Trump. Like, people in Israel, they love the guy. Nobody has done more for them. No one has had their back more than Trump has. And so Jews in America should appreciate him, and they should appreciate what he has done for Israel. Wayne Allen Root's kind of, he's out there. And Trump very oddly takes everything that Wayne Allen Root says, word for word, and he transcribes this onto his Twitter account. And it came off very odd. So he tweeted, "Thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the very nice words. President Trump is the greatest president." And so now he said, "Thank you for the very nice words." And now in quotations, he is repeating, typed out, what Wayne Allen Root said on his show. President Trump is the greatest president for Jews and for Israel in the history of the world, not just America. He is the best president for Israel in the history of the world. And the Jewish people in Israel love him. Like he's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God. But American Jews don't know him or like him. They don't even know what they are doing or saying anymore. It makes no sense, but that's okay. If he keeps doing what he's doing, he's good for all Jews, blacks, gays, everyone. And importantly, he's good for everyone in America who wants a job. And then Trump says, wow, after the quotations. And people think it's kind of narcissistic for him to type all of this up. I don't know if they understand. They do. They understand. Because he even says at the beginning, "Thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the very nice words." And he puts it all in quotations. They understand that he's repeating what somebody else said about him. He's not just saying this stuff about himself like, "Hey guys, look, I'm the second coming. You don't realize. But I'm actually the second coming. I hadn't mentioned it till now. But Jews, listen up. I'm actually the king of Israel, and I am God. So you need to kind of tone it down. Come back over to my side." No, but that's what the media is playing it as. They're playing it as if Trump just decided to tweet this stuff out. No, he copied what somebody else said about him onto his Twitter account and posted it and said, "Thanks for the nice words," and put it out there for everybody to say, for everyone to see. I get it. It's weird. I would not do the same thing. Trump is a crackhead, okay? I can't explain it. It's weird. But the responses from people as if he is calling himself God is ridiculous. Now, as everybody else has mentioned, it's very odd that Wayne Allen Root happened to say that he's the second coming of God, because Jews don't believe in the first coming of God. They don't believe that Jesus came and died on the cross and that he was the Messiah. They don't believe in any of that stuff. So it's really odd to call him the second coming for Jews when they don't believe in the first coming. But anyways, it's kind of hypocritical for the Democrats to go after Trump for what he said about Jews when they're going to allow it from Ayana Presley and many others on the left. As long as you are on their side, they're okay with whatever you say. You can say anything as long as you're on their side. It's cool. Now, that's not necessarily true. The social justice warriors, the farther left, and progressives, those guys eat their own. Those guys eat everybody who looks at them wrong. They will take you out and now say that you're a neo-Nazi. They'll say that you're a far-right activist, you're alt-right, you're whatever. You are everything except for with them. But the point is, I mean, Trump should have just kept quiet. I think that there was a good argument to make Rasheda Tlaib look bad in the end, especially since she's had support from Hamas, and you find out that the itinerary and the trip and everything was actually supported by a group that was funded by Hamas and very pro-Hamas and friendly with Hamas. And when there have been terrorist attacks, people from the squad have said they just want to be free. They didn't say, hey, look, we don't support terrorists whatsoever. They said the Palestinians just want to be free. And that's a horrible answer. But it's okay when they say it. If Trump says there's good people on both sides, even after specifying that he's not talking about the racists and the Nazis and the white supremacists and everything, even after he specifies that, it doesn't matter. The fact that he said there's good people on both sides was horrible, and everybody said that he was a racist from then on. And even when you show them that he specified that he wasn't talking about the Nazis and the racists that were marching on that day, when you show that to them, they say, well, he has support from David Duke, and he has support from the Nazis when he says stuff like this. These are dog whistles that he's sending out there to them. He just said he's not talking about them. Like, he just said he's not talking about them, and then said, but there's good people on both sides, right? But I can promise you, he wasn't talking about Antifa either. He wasn't saying there's good people over there. He was just saying that the march started off as just a couple of people who lived in that community who were upset that some statues were being taken down. And they decided to have a small march of like 60 to 100 people, and all of the racists found out, and they all showed up in mass numbers. And when they show up, of course, Antifa shows up, and it got crazy. But the people who were initially just from the community and just didn't want to see the statue torn down, those were good people, and they were on that side. And there were people on the left who were not with Antifa, who were just there. It wasn't all that ridiculous to say that there were good people on both sides, and I understand that he should have condemned what happened when the guy hit them with the car more adamantly, and I'm fully on board with that. But then to turn around and say now that he's racist or he's a white supremacist or something like that, it's just ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. And to continue going back and saying, oh, well, David Duke supports Trump, so obviously he's racist, or the alt-right supports Trump. They like some of the things he's saying, so that means he's racist. He gets votes from them sometimes. That means that he's obviously a racist person. Hamas has actually very much been in support of the squad. You bring up that to somebody on the left, they'll obviously say, oh, that has nothing to do with Rasheda Tlaib. The terrorists are they can support whoever they want. It has nothing to do with them, and they're not terrorists themselves. They don't say terrorism is bad. They don't come out against it. like you wanted Trump to do, um, and these people tend to support them. Now, I actually agree. I don't think that if David Duke or the alt right are supportive of Trump, that means that he's actually racist. I don't think that means anything, and I don't think that if Hamas is supportive of Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar, that means that they're terrorists. I think that the left just has a double standard when it comes to how they criticize Trump, and not just Trump, but anybody on the right. After the last couple shootings, it was CNN, MSNBC, um, the Young Turks. I mean, everybody that I watched said, well, here you go, conservatives. Now are you happy? Now are you happy that you all supported a bunch of neo-Nazis? And me, as a conservative, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was sitting there like, wow, am I really being blamed for these people who were obviously crazy and horrible people? I mean, and I haven't seen anybody that claims to be conservative, not alt-right, but conservative. I haven't seen any of them come out and supported these people. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even like, their motives were right. They just went about it the wrong way. Like, no, I haven't even seen that. But all conservatives are to blame now, according to them. But when, a guy goes and shoots up conservatives at a baseball game, and his manifesto talks about how he's a Bernie Sanders supporter. Do we turn around and blame Bernie Sanders? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. But the left is very hypocritical. They don't hold the same standards for themselves that they hold for others. Their arguments get so twisted around half the time when I'm having conversations with them. And that's not just the left. I mean, the right, too. The right has gone so far to deny identity politics that they end up saying things that are racist. And I don't think it's because they're racist. I think that they're just adamantly opposed to identity politics enough to where they try to test those lines, and they end up saying things that they shouldn't be saying, which, they really need to get a handle on. But if they're saying something racist, if they're saying something wrong or something, if they go over the line, they should be reprimanded. They should get whatever hate comes with it, not from somebody like Media Matters. Those people take literally everything they can find out of context and, move everything around to make it sound like somebody said something they didn't say. I mean, there are people out there who still believe that Donald Trump called all Mexican immigrants animals and rapists. And just in case you still believe that, it didn't happen. He called MS-13 gang members. The reporter specifically said, what do you think about MS-13? And he said something about them all being murderers and rapists and animals. He did not call all Latin immigrants animals and rapists. It didn't happen. But there are still people out there who believe that, and it's because of people like Media Matters who are just sitting around watching conservatives all day to see what it is that they can rip off. See what they can rip off from their shows, from their podcasts, and turn into some sort of major story. Last week they did it to Ben Shapiro, where they took out of context something that he said about people who are poor. It's not true. He didn't say the stuff that they said he said, but that's not going to stop the left from believing it. And 5 years from now, they'll still believe that Trump called Mexicans animals and rapists, and they'll believe Trump or Ben Shapiro said that all poor people are only poor because they're irresponsible. These things didn't happen, but the polarization is just two different sides trying to prove their points, and sometimes everybody goes a little bit too far trying to prove those points, and it starts to get ugly. But both Trump and Rasheda Tlaib seem to look like idiots in this one. So we'll leave it there. I'll get back with you guys again next week for another quick clip from Tomfoolery. See you later.